Hello, my name is Yubi Aranda Sandoval. I am an assistant director in the Office of Alumni Engagement. Welcome to our UNCG Alumni Career and Professional Development Lunch and Learn session. In the session today, we will help alumni master the graduate school application process and develop a strong personal statement that will allow them to stand out among other candidates, while also considering the biggest question of all: is this next step the right one for me? It is a process, but one that is manageable and possible to accomplish when you give yourself some time. It is my pleasure to introduce you to our guest speaker, personal statement guru and graduate application guru, Justin Golding. Great to have you, Justin. Justin is an assistant director and a career coach. Oh, hang on, pause. I'm going to restart that one again. Justin is an assistant director and career coach in career professional development. This is what I don't like, recorded sessions, pre-recorded sessions. All right. All right. It is my pleasure to introduce you to our guest speaker and personal statement guru, along with graduate application guru, Justin Golding. Justin is an assistant director and career coach in the Career and Professional Development Office. He serves as a coordinator for the PCA program at UNCG. He is an alumnus of Appalachian State University, where he studied political science with a criminal justice minor. And he is also a 2016 alumnus of UNC Greensboro's Counseling and Educational Development Master's Program. Justin loves working one-on-one with students and alumni in helping them find their passion and create long-term career goals. He is also skilled at helping students and alumni prepare for interviews and articulate their strengths. Justin is both MBTI and Strong Interest Inventory certified. Welcome, Justin. It's a pleasure to have you once again.
Thank you so much, Yubi. It's a pleasure to see you again, and it's a pleasure to be speaking with the alumni once again. Welcome everyone who's watching this recording right now. Today, I want to talk with you a little bit about the graduate school application process and also your personal statements. And I think going back to the question that Yubi just mentioned, is this the right time for you? I think that the answer to that is different for everybody. But today we're going to talk about some different considerations when thinking about this question. And also we're going to be talking about tips on how to make you the most competitive candidate possible. So I've got some slides to help us along in this conversation, but I also know that Yubi was going to have some different questions throughout. But I want this to be, a conversation, and I also want this to be planting the seeds. If at the end, I'm going to have my contact information. If you have questions about the graduate school process or the timeline, feel free to email me. Feel free to visit Handshake, which alumni have lifetime access to. So you can schedule an appointment with a full-time career coach. And we also have some time set aside for October 28th in particular. So I've got a link to that at the end of the presentation today. But let's jump right in and get started. So when thinking about, is this the right time for me? I think you want to think about your motivation. And this is something that I had to personally really reflect on when I was thinking about my own graduate school experience. I know I received a lot of advice from people during the time period who were saying, you need to go straight into graduate school from undergraduate, leaving very little time in between. And I'll be honest, at that time, I was just burned out. I was totally burned out. It was not the right time for me. I had had 4 years of schooling. I had, had a really great undergraduate GPA, but I was just burned out at that time period. So I ended up waiting 3 years to go back for my master's, and I did it in a completely different area, counseling and educational development, as compared to my political science undergraduate degree. So sometimes you can actually, if you're thinking about transitioning careers, if you're thinking about either making lateral moves or thinking about going for a promotion, sometimes if you're going for a specific type of graduate program, They may have where they want you to take prerequisite courses from your undergraduate degree. Sometimes they may not. I know the Counseling and Educational Development Program here at UNCG, they took in all different types of undergraduate majors. Some graduate schools, I know the Bryan School here at UNCG, they have two types of programs. They have an evening program for full-time professionals, and they have one where there's day and evening courses for those who have just graduated from their undergraduate degree. So the time period of when is best for you, that depends on the individual. So you want to think about, is this the right time for me? Am I somebody that may be a little bit burned out and I want to go and gain some full-time experience? Am I somebody that wants to go ahead? Am I going to need this for a promotion? Am I going to need this to advance within my career? So those are some things that you want to think about as you're going through this process. Also, you want to think about, where do I want to go for graduate school? I know I'm somebody that loves UNC Greensboro, so I'm always going to be representing and talking about all the great graduate programs that we have here at the university. But I also know that some people may have family considerations, some people may be location bound, or some people may want a totally new experience. So thinking about the graduate school and thinking about its location, I think that that's important. Some people thrive in online programs. Some people thrive in that person-to-person environment. I think a lot of us have had a lot of time over the past year and a half of the pandemic to really think about that. One thing you do want to consider is you want to think about the accreditation of the program. So if you're spending a lot of money for graduate school, making sure that it's going to be something that leads to a full-time job, but also think about the school's ranking in your field. Think about its state ranking and think about its national ranking also. So when researching, some of the different career goals that you could research how common is it for an individual to have this graduate degree? Is it going to be something that's beneficial for me in the long term? Because it depends industry by industry. Some industries, they really value the graduate program experience. Some, they really value more of that hands-on full-time experience that you may gain away from graduate school. And then also thinking about, if you do go for that graduate school experience or even PhD experience, is this going to be setting you apart in the industry, or will the degree meet a standard in the industry? And I'll give you an example of that. So a couple of years ago, and this was back in 2018, I drove down to Charlotte and went to two different places, the Mint Museum in Charlotte and then Wells Fargo. Luckily, both of those were employer meet and greets where they were able to talk about some of the internships, opportunities that they offered. And at Wells Fargo in particular, they mentioned that they have an entire section where they recruit people with PhDs, specifically in mathematics. They recruit those individuals to basically calculate or evaluate how much exposure the company can take when it's making basically different types of bets or investments or different things, different decisions when it comes to the stock market. So how much exposure, how much debt, different things that they can take on when they're making financial arrangements. And that's specifically PhD in mathematics. So is there a specific standard? Is there a specific niche, for lack of a better term, in your industry where you really do need a PhD? Because, if you're going into like sales at Wells Fargo, if you're going into, I'm kind of blanking, but like a financial analyst, you would not be going down the PhD route. So you want to make sure that if you are going down this specific type of educational route, you want to be sure it's worth your money. You want to make sure that this is something that's going to lead to a better future, something that's going to lead to ample job opportunities. And you want to make sure that it's something that I've done my research, I feel confident when I'm making this decision for myself. Now, with the accreditation, you want to make sure, is this graduate school worth the time and money that I'm putting into it? So when a graduate program is going through its accreditation, and there's different types of accrediting bodies. So like the Counseling and Educational Development Program, it is KCREP accredited. But basically what they're doing is that every 7 years, they are evaluating the program and making sure that basically the program is up to the national board of standards. So they may look at things like the acceptance rate, they will look at the curriculum, they will look at, and it may even be something related to either capstone projects may be related to comprehensive exams, but basically they're making sure that the program is adequately preparing people for a future outside of academia. So when you are looking at different types of programs and making sure that they are worth your money, look at the acceptance rate of people who get into the program. Look at some of the information related to the alumni of that program. Are people who are graduating finding work within their work field 6 to 8 months after graduating? And some great resources to utilize when looking at this is US News and World Report and also Peterson's Guide. Both of those should show you how, US News and World Report will show you what the ranking is of the program and other important information. But Peterson's Guide can show you what the information is related to how many people are in that program, can show you information related to how much that program costs, and can also have valuable information to what do I need to complete in this program in order to graduate. Now, when you're thinking about a graduate program, there are some things that you definitely want to research. And some of the things that you know about the program, this is going to lead directly into the personal statement. So one of the things I always tell students if they're thinking about graduate school, or I also tell alumni, check to see if there's an open house. If you are thinking about a graduate level program, you want to make sure that you've talked with either some of the faculty members or some of the first year students or second year students. And I know our friends down at NC State during the past year and a half of the pandemic, they did a wonderful job transitioning their in-person open house to a virtual setting. So I know that NC State often will have a monthly virtual open house that allows people who are looking at their programs to have that opportunity to talk with faculty members and ask the different questions that are relevant to them and what they are looking for. One of the things I always recommend that students ask is, basically, what is the percentage of alumni who are employed full-time after graduating? And I often use the time frame of 6 to 8 months, just because depending on if a person is location bound, depending on what they are specifically looking for, 6 months is usually kind of the average length of time it may take somebody to find employment. Fingers crossed, it's sooner than that, but depending on some of the different factors in the person's life, it may take up to 6 to 8 months. So you want to see the strength of the alumni. You want to make sure that people who are graduating from that program, they are gaining different types of opportunities and different jobs. So when you're thinking about a specific program, you should know, 1, the geographic location, 2, its current number of students in that cohort. Also, research faculty and their special interests. So if you are preparing your personal statement, a lot of times you're asking that question of, how is this graduate program going to prepare me for life after college, for life after graduate school? So you're talking about specifically, if I attend this graduate program, this is how it's going to set up a foundation for my future career opportunities and best prepare me. So sometimes I often recommend that both alumni and students interested in graduate school look at the list of faculty and look at their research interests. What are some of the articles that they've published? What are some of the things that are important to them? And that way, when you are creating your personal statement, in your personal statement, you could say, I would love to speak with Dr. Smith concerning their research in this, or I would love to work with this particular person because of their background in this. So research the faculty, research their special interests. Also, make sure that you know the admissions requirements and the deadline for admission. Some programs, I know that they require the GRE. Some programs, they require a personal statement. Some require 3 letters of recommendation. So you want to make sure that you have all the materials needed. And then the deadline for admission, some programs can be as early as October 31st. Some can be as late as February or March. So you want to make sure that the program that you are looking for specifically, that you do not miss out on that opportunity. Because like I said, some could be as early as October 31st or even November 15th. So you want to make sure that you're not missing out on any great opportunities.
Justin, quick question. So there's been students that I've encountered and even alum in my time here that have asked, well, I'm confused about my career path. I studied this during my undergraduate years, but I feel a calling in this particular field. What is the best tip for you from you as you've gained much more experience on guiding some of these students or alum in this crossroad, if you will? So yeah, what's your best tip for them on that? Like, I studied this and I don't know if I want to go, or I've been in this field for so long and I don't want to deal with this anymore, and I'm thinking about graduate school. Yeah, tell me more about that.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I've actually worked with a lot of both non-traditional students and alumni who have gone into a full-time career. They've maybe worked there for about anywhere from 5 to 10 years, and they've either experienced burnout or they've been successful with it, and they've said, I want to try something new, or I want to see some new opportunities. So from my perspective, you are the best expert of yourself. So if you find that you are getting burned out, if you find that maybe a workplace, either due to leadership or just due to the environment itself is not the best place for you at that time, I would definitely encourage you to meet with a career coach like myself and see what your options are. Now, a lot of times, if I'm meeting with anybody, whether it's a traditional age student, non-traditional student, graduate student, or alumnus, and they're telling me, I'm in this environment that I'm not enjoying anymore, or I'm in this environment that's not utilizing my strengths, a lot of times I will, then segue to figuring out, so what would be a good environment for utilizing your strengths? What would be a good environment for utilizing your passion and purpose? And we've got a couple different assessments here at the university to help guide us that way. So we've got one is a strong interest inventory. And a lot of times, if you are, I'm trying to use my words carefully here. So if you find that you are unhappy in your career right now, or you find that you're not having a lot of passion and purpose in it, the strong interest can be useful for helping you figure out what might be a better option or a career option for me at that point. So strong interest, it's looking at your likes and your interest. So what it's doing is it's comparing you to other people who are very similar to yourself in both your likes and your dislikes. And what it's doing is it's saying that there are people who are very similar to yourself who have been very happy in this type of career. So it's not telling you that you should do that type of career. It's telling you that you could. It's telling you this might be a good option because other people who are very similar to yourself, they really enjoy this type of career. So I would facilitate the strong interest with them. We would look at different career paths. A lot of times we look at the job responsibilities, we look at the level of education, and we also look at the financial information, just because money isn't everything, but it is something. And we want everybody to have all the information that they need in order to make the best decision for either themselves, their significant other, or other extended family members that might be impacted by their decision. So strong interest is often one of the assessments that we really utilize to figure out different types of career paths. But another thing that we would look at, what are some transferable skills that you have? So when thinking about making this transition, because we also offer mock interview help here at the university. So when answering that question of why making this change, we can help alumnus really think about how to talk about their transferable skills and also talk about making this new career path, starting this new chapter in their life. So that's another way that we can help you, is we can help you think about your transferable skills, how you would want to talk about them in a resume, cover letter, or even talk about them in an interview that would best reflect your narrative, best reflect your story as you're talking with a new industry or new career, if you make that choice for yourself. And sometimes when we are taking a look at new career paths, we may see that you need a specific certification. You may need to go back to graduate school. So we would talk about what those options look like and basically talk with a person about these are some of the considerations that you want to make. Just as I mentioned, some of the considerations for graduate school. So if a person is finding that they're burned out, they're unhappy with their current job, there are several different resources that we can provide to you to help you in that journey.
That was very helpful. Thank you.
Of course. So the GRE is a computerized test. And I will say that the GRE has changed a little bit just because of everything with COVID and the pandemic. They've actually started allowing some people to take the GRE at their, wherever it is that they live, like their home, apartment, different things like that. The main thing is that they have a proctor who is basically observing virtually to ensure that nobody is cheating during that time period. But the most important thing for the GRE is that the link that I have posted right here, ets.org/GRE/revised general/register. That is where you would go to register for the GRE. And here in the Greensboro area specifically, if you are living in the Greensboro area, that is the location for where people would take it if they are taking it on site. And usually the times are 8 a.m. and 12:30 p.m. I do know that last year some programs waived the GRE just because of everything that was happening in the world. I do think that with the new option of allowing people to take it home, but having a proctor monitor them virtually, I think that that's been an accommodation or something that the good people who at the graduate records examination that they have adjusted. I think that graduate programs will go back to requiring it. But just know there has been some changes in the GRE over the past 2 years, just because as a direct result of the pandemic. But go to the website, you can register there, and the two times are 8 a.m. and 12:30 p.m. And I believe the cost is $205. But if you have any questions, definitely feel free to email me, and I'll be happy to check with my colleagues at Academic Achievement to see if there's any other changes that may have been made that have escaped me. But there have been some changes, changes to make it more accessible to a greater number of people, but also as a result of the ongoing pandemic. And then there's also some other tests. Now, I will say when it comes to the GMAT, the LSAT, MCAT, which is for medical school, DAT for dental school, these have specific time periods during the year that you would have to sign up for them. So if you're thinking about dental school, medical school, GMAT is in the case of going back for a business master's program, and LSAT is for the for law school preparation. You would want to make sure that you read up about the format of the test. And there's a bunch of great information from our friends over at Kaplan. They actually have some practice courses or preparation courses with some practice tests that you can take. But for any frequently asked questions about deadlines and reporting these scores, I would go to ets.org and click on the frequently asked questions. But I do know that the GMAT, LSAT, MCAT, DAT, MAT, all of these have specific time periods that you would need to take them throughout the year. So you just want to make sure, depending on the program that you're looking at, that you don't let the deadlines escape you. And then with financing education, I do know that there are some different loans and assistantships and fellowships. There's actually some graduate programs, some of their graduate assistantships, depending on the funding, they may have a tuition waiver attached to it. Now, a tuition waiver doesn't mean that everything is free. It just means that the tuition has been waived. So student fees, books, different things like that, you're still paying for them. But that is a sizable reduction in the amount of money that you would have to pay. But you want to make sure you do your research and you see what type of programs may offer tuition waivers. And some resources that you may want to check out is finaid.org, our good friends at petersons.com, fia.uncg.edu if you're thinking about graduate school here at UNC Greensboro, and then collegeaffordabilityguide.org. Now, one of the main pieces of your candidacy, one of the main things that the program is looking at is your personal statement. And your personal statement is giving you the ability to introduce yourself, but also giving you the ability to talk about what is most important to you, talk a little bit about your education, what you're passionate about, and your future career goals, and how this program in particular is going to basically set you up or prepare you for your future career goals. Now, one of the things that some alumni or some students may talk about in their personal statement is going through challenging times or struggling academically, which is completely understandable. I know that there are some people who maybe struggled in their beginning of their college career, but then they were really able to pick it up near the end, and they really thrived in their graduate program, where they were taking classes that they were passionate about and were more specific to what they wanted to do in the future. So that is totally understandable. I know I myself have gone through challenging times academically when I was an undergraduate student. So that's totally understandable. But when you are writing your personal statement, you want to make sure that any type of challenges or academic struggles you went through don't dominate the personal statement. If you're talking about any challenges that you've overcome, I would limit that to a paragraph or limit that to 2 paragraphs at most. Because at the end of the day, you really want to talk about your strengths, and you also want to talk about what you're bringing to the table as a candidate, and you're showcasing to a prospective graduate school, this is why I'm applying, this is what I want to do in the future, this is how this program would make me an excellent candidate for that or would prepare me, and this is how I'm going to succeed academically here at the program. So you want to make sure you talk about your future career goals, and you want to focus on your strengths and your skills. So if you're applying for a research-heavy graduate program, talk about your past successful graduate or your past successful academic projects you've been a part of. Talk about a class that you really succeeded in. And then also, you want to think about the length. So some graduate programs, they may have a limit of 600 words. Some may want you to specifically write 2 to 4 pages. Some may even have specific questions within their prompt. So you want to make sure that if there is a specific prompt, that you're answering all the questions that the graduate school is asking of you. And you want to make sure that it is the proper length depending on what the graduate school is asking for. A lot of times it's generally going to be 2 to 4 pages, but I've seen our good friends at East Carolina, they often have 600 words as like the max that they want to see on a graduate, or basically a personal statement. So it depends on the program you are applying to, it depends on the university. The most important thing is that you're focusing on your skills and strengths, talking about what you bring to the table as a candidate, and then talking about how you would be successful and how this would prepare you for a future career goal. And another thing that you want to think about, and this goes back to where I was talking about faculty beforehand, when you research the faculty and research their interests, make sure that you are able to make a connection if the personal statement prompt allows you to. So if you're talking about the fact that I'm really passionate about this specific topic, this specific interest, tie it back to the work of a faculty member. Say, I would love the opportunity to work with this particular professor, this particular instructor. You could even say, I really admire the work that, I'll give you an example. I know Dr. Champion over in the CED, she has done a lot of amazing work when it comes to counseling from a multicultural perspective. So if you wanted to refer back to Dr. Champion's work, that would be an amazing thing to showcase that you've done your research and to also showcase some of the things that you are passionate about, some of the things that are important to you as an individual, as a candidate. So you want to think about the length, making sure that you are able to talk about everything that's important to you in that specific length. Also, you want to make sure that you answer all their questions. So if they have a prompt dedicated to specifically a specific question, make sure you're answering that question. And then, as I mentioned before, you want to make sure that you're coming from a strengths-based perspective, that you're talking about how you would be successful in this program, how this would prepare you for your future career goals. Now, I know when working with students, working with alumni, sometimes people really struggle thinking about their past experiences. And that's totally understandable. A lot of times when we are conducting mock interviews here at the university, it's a low risk environment where people can really practice, really think about what is it that I bring to the table, both my strengths, both my, my ability to collaborate with team members, and also thinking about challenges or possible failures I've even had. So this activity I call the ABCs of me. So a lot of times when thinking about how to brainstorm or reflect on the experiences, these are some good questions to think about. So, if you're applying for graduate school, a lot of your personal statement could be academically focused. So think about a research topic that interests you. And this could be, if you're going into business, it could be something like finance. If you're going into counseling, it could be counseling a specific population. If you're going into education, it could be something related to a trend that you see in higher education. If you're going into nursing practitioning or nurse practitioner program, you could basically be thinking about how the pandemic and COVID in particular has changed a lot of the ways that hospitals and medical professionals, how that work is done. So think about a research topic that really interests you. Another thing to think about, or that you could speak about, what's the biggest accomplishment of my life? Is it academically focused? Is it something that's outside in my full-time job that I'm currently working at? What's something that I can talk about that showcases my level of success? Another thing that you could talk about is a time that I got out of my comfort zone. So this could showcase specifically to a graduate school, a possible area of growth for yourself, where you're really challenging yourself to either educate yourself about a specific issue, or how you were able to work with a specific population that maybe you had limited experience to, or maybe you were doing something that just completely you had never done before, but really was a life-changing or life-affirming experience. But that could be something that showcases your level of growth and your ability to educate yourself. Another thing is my area of specialty. So going back to that strengths-based perspective, what is it that I bring to the table as a candidate? What are some of the skills that I bring? What are some of the past successes that I bring? What is the knowledge that I bring? Because, sometimes a graduate program, they may want something specifically regarding prerequisite courses, but what's my area of specialty? And especially if you are applying for a specific concentration, this would be a good thing to include. And a quality that I believe separates me from everyone else. So a lot of times, and if you're watching this webinar, I'm sure that you've probably Googled personal statements, graduate schools on Google, and they always talk about that hook. Like they always talk about in that first paragraph, having something that separates you from everyone else. So a lot of times when thinking about this quality that separates you from everyone else, what is it that's going to showcase your passion and showcase your level of interest, where the people reading your personal statement know this person's serious. This person is someone who wants to be here. This person is someone who is actively engaged in their future career goals. What is going to be something that really connects you with your audience and makes them understand this is something I really want to do? And sometimes people, may have an experience from their, personal life. Sometimes people may have an experience from their academic life. You just want to make sure that it's something that's going to showcase, this is something that's important to me. This is something where, I'm going to be successful. Now, with graduate school resume and CV, this works a little bit different than a traditional resume that you may be using to apply for a full-time job. A lot of times, once you graduate with your undergraduate degree, we recommend that your regular resume for work be just one page. Just because you may be applying for several different positions, you may have several different other job candidates who are competing against you for the same job. But with your resume or your CV, and CV stands for curriculum vitae, so that's basically Latin for across the lifespan. So that's just a good way of saying this could be more than one page. This can include several different areas of your life. So this is going to be, CV is going to be a little bit more academically focused, thinking about your education, any capstone projects or academic projects, any relevant coursework. Did you complete any type of research experience as an undergraduate student? Have you done any type of research experience in your full-time job? And also thinking about your volunteer or your community experience. But this gives you a nice opportunity to really talk about everything that's important to you, because you don't have that one-page limit. CV could be 2 pages, could be 3 pages, but you have more opportunity to talk about some of the great things that you've been involved in and really showcase to a graduate school your excellent work ethic, that I'm somebody that's a well-rounded candidate. I've had a lot of experience academically, but I've also had a lot of experience when it comes to my professional experience and also my volunteer experience. So the graduate school resume or curriculum vitae, that gives you a lot of great opportunity to showcase how well-rounded of a candidate I am. Now, some graduate schools may have an interview, some may not. And the program, they may still have virtual interviews going on to cut down on the level of people on campus. Some may have gone back to interviewing people in person. A lot of times these are conducted by faculty members and current students. They could include one-on-one. They could also include group interviews or social functions. I know that I went to the, I graduated from the Counseling and Educational Development program. And when I was going through the interview process, they had several different group interviews, and they also had several different social functions because they wanted to see how everyone was going to interact with each other. Because in the counseling program, that was the time that I did the most group work of any time in my life. So they wanted to see how we would work together, how we would communicate with one another. They wanted to see, are these going to be people who are going to get along? And an important thing, if you're ever going out to dinner with a faculty member or current student, or if you're ever having dinner with some of the other people applying for that program, that's part of the interview process. It may be a little bit more social, but it's important for you to remember that is part of the interview process. So you want to just think about that, especially if you're going out to lunch or if you're going out to dinner. And they will ask you questions about your academic work. They will ask you questions about your future career goals. And a lot of these questions will be behavioral based. So they will ask you about your successes and also ask you about your possible failures and what you learned from that experience. So just remember, graduate school interviews could be virtual or in person. They could be one-on-one group interviews, and they can also include social functions such as a dinner or lunch. Always remember, you always want to remember that when you are interacting with anybody from the graduate school, you're being evaluated. They're thinking about, is this going to be a great person that can, really succeed in our program, and who, after graduating, is going to really represent this program well. So those are just some things you want to think about. And then these are just some of the popular interview questions, asking about future career goals, tell us about a time that you failed, what are some of the strengths related to your research? So as I mentioned before, these are just some of the popular interview questions. Now, just to kind of wrap everything up, these are some of the future considerations that you really want to focus on. And some of these are things that I've mentioned before, such as the acceptance rate for the university. You want to make sure that you have a good understanding of that. How many students were in last year's cohort, just so that you can have an idea of how many of their, if you're accepted, how many people you would be attending class with, their U.S. News and World Report ranking, the name of the chairperson, and at least one faculty member. So doing your research when it comes to the faculty who teach there, cost of tuition, and also whether there's opportunities for tuition waivers. Does this program have a comprehensive exam, a thesis, or an internship component? That's important to think about because some programs, they may place more of an emphasis when it comes to internships. Some may not even have an internship requirement. You may need to complete a thesis in order to graduate. Some may have comprehensive exams. So make sure that you know all of the program's curriculum before you accept. And then also, what is the the success rate of people finding full-time employment after graduating. So I wanted to hand it over to Yubi if she has any questions. But I did want to just say our office is having a special event for alumni specifically on October 28th. Justin, will be, I've set aside my entire day to work with, alumni such as yourself, helping you, whether that's with resumes, cover letters, or even thinking about, new career opportunities, thinking about going to graduate school, or, if you wanted to take an assessment, I would be more than happy to either facilitate the strong interest or the Myers-Briggs. But if you wanted to, we have the link for the Sign Up Genius, but that's going to be from 9 to 5 that day. So I will be meeting with several alumnus that day and providing some feedback, providing some guidance, depending on where you may be in your career journey. But I'm excited to be working with alumni that day. And if you are unable to schedule an appointment for that day, we do work with alumni throughout the year. So if you want to set up an appointment with a career coach through Handshake, every alumnus have lifetime access to Handshake or whichever platform we're using, because there may be a day that we switch from Handshake to another platform. But you can either schedule directly through Handshake, or you can call our office and we are more than happy to work with alumni. I do know that we are able to work with alumni pretty regularly right now. I do know that, we are, just because of budget cuts and different things like that, we are down 2 career coaches. So it may, be like 2 or 3 weeks out that we are scheduling you for an appointment. But I do wanted to just reiterate that at this time, we are able to work with alumni. We are able to, talk about resumes, cover letters, interviews, assessments, different things like that. So we are more than happy to work with you. And you can either visit handshake.uncg.edu, or you can email me at my work email, jtgoldin@uncg.edu.
Thank you so much, Justin. Yes, I am happy that you mentioned our career coaching day coming up October 28th. I would highly suggest you take advantage of this opportunity. But as Justin mentioned, in years past, we hadn't had the resource to allocate time for our alumni to come in and get these personal one-on-one coaching sessions, but now we do. And I highly encourage any alum that is interested or making a career shift, change to their life, come in and chat with one of our career coaches or Justin, and they would be happy to help you navigate that process. So I do have a couple of questions. You mentioned financial support from some of the departments. So some of the departments or programs that are available out there have a paid internship. Is that correct?
So depending on the program that you're applying to, there may be paid internship opportunities. More often than not, what you're going to be looking for to help with the cost of your graduate program is the graduate assistantship. Because a lot of times your internship will be unpaid. Now, there may be some internships out there that are paid, but more often than not, that's unpaid. But what you want to look for that is going to allow you to earn some money and also maybe attached to a tuition waiver is the graduate assistant.
So 2 different things.
Yes, they are 2 different things. And I'll even give you an example. My second year in the Counseling and Educational Development Program, I had a graduate assistantship where I was working 20 hours in career and professional development, but then I was paid for that work. And because it was 20 hours, I had a tuition waiver attached to it. Mm-hmm. But I then spent 20 hours in the Dean of Students office, basically completing my internship hours for my second year of my program, but that was unpaid.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification, because that can get a little tricky, and we think internship and I was thinking maybe it's the same thing as an assistantship, but it is very different.
Yeah, often your internship, you're gaining those hands-on experiences, depending on what type of program that you're going into. Basically, you're getting that hands-on experience and preparing for a future career. And like I said, a lot of internships may be unpaid. There are some that are paid, so it just depends on the situation. But all graduate assistantships are paid, and some also come with the tuition waiver. But I know my second year of school, luckily I had all evening classes because I was basically working a full-time job. It was just that I was working 20 hours at 2 different places.
Gotcha. Wow. Wow. So you had a full-time job.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit, you talked about the programs. There was not much of talk of a support system. What should I look for in a graduate program to make sure that they are also there to support me as a graduate student as I am, marching along my path?
That's a great question. So when looking at the curriculum of a graduate school program, so I know in my graduate school program, I was part of the college counseling program specifically, or the concentration specifically. So at the time, Dr. Laura Gonzalez, she's now in the SAHI program, but at the time was in CED. But she was somebody who helped when it came to thinking about classes to take, but also general support. Very much like undergraduate, you will have an academic advisor in your graduate school experience. But when it comes to actual supports, as graduate assistant, you will have a supervisor in your department that you're working in, and also an academic advisor. So I would definitely, depending on, once you're accepted, once you've started the program, I would definitely talk to some of those individuals about some of the different things that, whether it might be related to academics or, other topics in your life. There is a support system, when it comes to those two things. And then also other support systems, there's different universities, different, and I did want to just kind of clarify. So Yubi, when you're asking a support system, are you talking about just the graduate program, or just like all encompassing some of the different departments on campus to help students, like the counseling center and different things like that?
I was specifically talking about just the graduate program, but I know that there's other bridges that you can cross on campus if that is a resource you need to reach out.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, so with the graduates program in particular, there should be someone who's advising you from an academic perspective, but also if you are completing a thesis, you should have like a thesis advisor, someone who's helping you with that process, who's providing guidance when it comes to the academic work that you're doing. And this is more for PhD, but PhD, you're working towards your dissertation. Depending on the graduate program, you may have, as I mentioned, comprehensive exams or a thesis or a internship component. If you're working on a thesis, you would have somebody that would be, I think that you could submit your thesis to provide, recommendations and, basically telling you, the work that you've completed, where it's at. But also in your internship, you would have a supervisor who would be, providing basically providing that guidance during that time period. So there is definitely a support system, people who are, providing guidance, telling you what you're doing well, telling you some potential areas of growth. So depending on what type of program that you are going into, you just want to make sure that the curriculum should have some information about that.
Gotcha. Thank you. That's helpful. Well, it is time. We have come to an end of this presentation. I hope that you all have gained as much knowledge as I have about this process It can be tricky, it can be confusing and overwhelming, but I think just taking it one step at a time is probably the best way to tackle this big project in itself. So it's been a pleasure having you, Justin. Thank you. And if you would like to contact again, Justin, please reach out to him, jtgoldin@uncg.edu. And if you would like to contact our office, Alumni Engagement, you may also reach out to me via LinkedIn or my email y_arand2@uncg.edu. Thank you so much, and it's been a pleasure to be with you guys. Please reach out if you have any questions. Have a wonderful afternoon.